They were legion, and our resistance lasted but weeks. How many mortals gave their lives to protect us, and how many angels were gravely wounded by my brother's blade, we cannot say, for they were immeasurable by any reckoning. In the end, the throne room was penetrated, and we were overpowered by sheer weight of numbers. My beloved advisors, who, with a little help from myself, had managed to withstand the ravages of time remarkably well, were executed before our eyes. Our punishment was exile once more. Torn from the mortal realm, we were dragged to the hellrost. Since the Egyptian sin war, it had been a harsh landscape plagued with everlasting winters, the battle-torn ground undisturbed for thousands of years. It was a realm we knew well, for we had been here before. Hellfrost it might be now, but once this realm was known as Hell. Since the end of the war we had helped win, the White Fields had been a sacred tomb to the fallen. Here, time had stood still. Our gaze fell upon the immortal skulls of angels and demons, silent witnesses to the savage conflict fought here, and now we were to be the only living inhabitants. The fate of my brother was not identical to my own. Calmer, quiet, a diplomat more than a warrior, they sated themselves with shattering my blade and leaving me to roam the barren lands undefended. No doubt they thought there was no chance of escape, and with no end to my torment, I would lose my sanity. My brother's fate was far harsher. He was sentenced to the region of the Nightmareland, where a temple of ice was raised as his prison. In their eyes, his doom was certain. The Nightmareland was a forgotten part of Hell, a treacherous realm even by immortal standards. Should he break free from his cage, the jagged cliffs of the Valley of the Damned would prevent further progress, leaving him at the mercy of the uncontrolled revenge that seeped through the fabric of the realm and breathed an unholy life all its own. No sooner than our jailers left, I summoned an eclipse to shield me from the all-seeing eye of heaven. By immortal standards, it was a simple trick, one I had learned from the ancient Egyptians. Concealed under a veil of darkness, I tracked down the fragments of my blade and began my work anew. Broken though the blade was, its magic could not be sundered. Metal and spell were reforged to create an axe that would be the bane of the betrayers. Within its shell, I poured my unchained rage. So was born Angel Cleaver. I worried little about my brother. His blade, which was still intact, still carried within it the hymn of mending. Sooner or later, he would escape his prison, and any injuries he received would be healed by the Song of Power. No, my thoughts lay with the mortals we had left behind. Heaven's wrath had not been sated with our capture, and without us to guide them, they would be easy prey. Trapped in a land without time, we knew not the length of our imprisonment. Neither of us accepted our fate as final, but our nature began to change to suit the enclosures in which we were caged. Our thoughts once turned to the three self-doubting fallen angels, thinking perhaps they might come to our assistance. We soon put such notions aside, for they had been lost for millennia, and their apathy was unlikely to have lessened in so short a time. Hellfrost may have been our prison, but we were not without sources of information capable of reaching us. word reached me that heaven had finally grown tired of the human race. Men had long changed the world to suit their needs, but now they endeavored to unlock the secrets of artificial intelligence. This the powerful seraphim could not tolerate. That God gave the world, his creation, to man only to watch the mortals destroy it was one thing, but to attempt to become gods was another. Man had been granted free will and consciousness at the instant of his creation, but now he was attempting to transfer that consciousness, the divine essence that separated him from beasts, to inanimate matter. It was a violation that could not go unpunished. Heaven decreed a flood would exterminate the human race. This would be no deluge of water, no drowning death as unleashed of old. This would be a metaphorical flood, marked by the dawn of the machines. Men would be permitted to fulfill their ambitions, only to watch their creations turn on them. The two betrayers were again ordered into the service of heaven. This time, they would pass as mortals, infiltrating the AI research team and guiding them towards heaven's appointed goal. The key to this would be a simple cog forged in heaven's workshops. Its purpose was to replace the human heart in the AI, a construct known as Syndicea. Placed in its chest cavity and wired into the robotic core, the cog bestowed the machine with full consciousness. I have often asked myself whether mankind would have continued the experiments had he known the final outcome. I have yet to reach an answer. The cog filled Syndicea with the entire history of mankind in an instant. Its barbaric wars, the abuse of the planet, the misuse of species man was meant to watch over, the injustices man wrought against his fellow man. The newborn entity, man's creation in his own image, reached the only logical conclusion: mankind would have to be exterminated. Wired into the global information network, it conquered Zion with minimal resistance. Now in full control, it initiated a full-scale nuclear strike. Within a week, the time it had taken God to make the world and the creatures that crawled upon its surface, the machine had transformed much of Zion into monumental factories. Its citizens, the people we had come to know as our own, became the raw materials it needed to create an army of biomechanical machines. The final days of the human race had dawned. Though frozen in body, a lone thought burned in my brother's mind: reunion with Eve. But like the last ember in a once raging fire, it was a dull glow and rapidly diminishing. Cracks began to appear in his sanity. In his delusional state, he wished for her non-existence, to rid his mind of the nightmares of his past. Heaven may have heard his thoughts, but it chose to ignore them. His blade, buried deep in the ice temple of Nightmareland, did not. The blade sang. Renewed strength flowed through his limbs. His frozen shackles cracked, then shattered. His mind at once turned to his heart, for his jailers had separated it from his body and buried it within the ice temple as a final ignominy. His escape did not go unnoticed outside his temple prison. Wraiths, the spirits of angels long buried in the ice, awakened with a wail that must have caused God to shudder, for in all of eternity it had no comparison. The object of their rage was my brother, for his presence was deemed a violation of their sacred resting place. Within seconds of his emerging into the frozen hell, they swarmed over him, tearing and biting at his flesh. Oh, to have seen it! My brother, a lone warrior, clutching his perfect blade in his right hand and his still beating heart in his left, preparing to meet the onslaught with honor and courage. He should have struck at his attackers, but he stayed his hand. Instead, he dropped his blade and raised his heart aloft for all to see. With a roar, he plunged it back into his empty chest. Terror was the primary weapon of the Wraiths, and now it was their enemy, for they flinched. Somewhere, deep in the recesses of their undying spirits, they recognized the courage of their old general, a being that had absolute power over his heart, mind, and body. As one, the Wraiths bowed low before my brother. 616 angels fell in battle that fateful day, and now 616 Wraiths swore fealty to my brother. He was the Unguided king, and the army was his to command. Now I look back, I see that our positions among men had reversed. My brother was king, and I would be his prince. Sensing my brother's release through the bond we shared, I dispatched a messenger to him with all haste. All those years caged, all that energy expended in trying to escape, had likely erased all knowledge of our last conversation. Before we were separated, we had sworn a final oath to defend the human race against whatever enemy they faced. We had saved them from the tyranny of Hell's armies long ago, and now we must defend them from Heaven's wrath. Oh, how the universe had changed. Hell was an impotent frozen wasteland, Heaven was aflame with insanity, and nature, which we had both come to love, was but a vague memory. So choked was it by pollution and warfare. Someone had to pay the price. Our plan was to march on Zion, the enemy's heart on the mortal realm, and cast down the machines and the two betrayers. With their deaths, the planet would slowly recover from the millennia of corruption that had occurred in our absence. The Wraiths knew a secret passage through the Nightmareland and its razor cliffs, and they duly guided my brother onward. At the head of the army he marched, the Unguided king. Behind him fluttered the banners of the triple solar symbols once more. Heaven reacted, sending a legion of angels to oppose his progress. Had he fought alone, he might have faltered, but with his army at his side, he swept aside all opposition, scattering their flesh and consuming the knowledge residing in their minds. Through the latter, the army grew in strength, not in numbers, but in wisdom. Though I had yet to stand at my brother's side, I called forth another eclipse to shelter us from Heaven's gaze. Let them ponder our intended destination. Let them fear that we were marching to their gates. They may not have been able to see us, but they could hear our progress. For the very foundations of the universe shook at our advance. The invasion had begun.